Good. So we're starting something new here.
Yeah, we are.
And we don't know how it's going to go, but that's okay. So I was thinking that we could just dive right in and forego my marketing instinct to try to name this something right now.
Yep.
Although I did have the Down Low with Dr. Jones. I thought that might be decent. Or Michelle's Musings.
Yeah, better.
So, yeah.
What else you got?
We'll
That's
see.
it so
yeah,
far?
That's a little bit my marketing brain is turned up right now.
Okay.
But it might be better to just dive right in with the question and then we'll go from there. But the point is...
We could also invite people to name it later once
totally,
we get going.
Yeah, y'all could name it. That'd be awesome.
That's true.
So the point of this is in our last newsletter, we got a lot of feedback, really positive feedback, because you sent a letter directly to people from your perspective about an experience you had. And it made sense to us that, like, okay, let's let people hear more from Michelle about her thoughts, what's going on, because you are the visionary leader behind this whole thing. So let's start getting your perspective out there a bit more. So that's the idea.
I think it's going to be super helpful because I spend most of my waking hours thinking about this, and I rarely have the chance to try to put it into words and actions that make sense to other people. Right. So hopefully it will also be helpful to me to have
clarifying.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Cool. Well, let's jump into our first question, and we're just going to go back to basics here. And I think that's good because sometimes I think we get ahead of ourselves or too deep in the weeds, and then we kind of lose touch with the main reason that we're doing things. So let's jump in with, what is the purpose of college for you, and how does that feel different than maybe what you see in the world?
Yeah, it's such a good and obvious question that I think is not asked often enough, and I think that's a big part of how we got into the situation we're in right now with the current state of higher education. I believe, and I believe that I've always believed, although I didn't know how to say it before, and I didn't know what to do with it before, that the purpose of college should be helping young adults figure out who they are and what they want to do in the world, build some skills around that, and then be ready to start doing that.
Right. It sounds
logical,
simple, easy to do, maybe.
I think it's easy to do if you stay focused on the students and you stay focused on the purpose. So I feel like my driving core belief is that I believe the world would be a better place if we had more people doing work that they loved and doing work that they felt connected to from their values and from their passions. And I think we have too little of that in the world. And I felt like as a professor, that was my job, was helping them find that in themselves and prepare to do it and have the skills needed to do it.
Right.
But I don't think that that's how colleges generally operate these days.
Why not?
I think that the way things have changed so much, both in our society, but also in the institutions of higher education, that they've had to focus business models on other things. So the students end up not being the top priority because they need, I don't know, fancy buildings, or they need their donors to be happy, or they need whoever it is, the faculty, the staff, the administrators. I think the business models are focused probably out of financial necessity on things that are not the student. And as soon as you shift to not being focused on the student, that changes some of the decisions that you make because you're coming from a different place of values. And you build your business model in a different sort of way when you're focused on students than when you're not. So I think it's a lot of that.
Yeah. Do you get pushback from people? I mean, it seems like a logical, simple thing to do. Like, let's do college this way, or let's at least have this be a bigger part of what's happening in the mainstream world. But there's obviously reasons that that's not happening, and people are probably attached to old paradigms. So do you find that you get people pushing back against the simplicity and kind of logical nature of that goal?
Rarely, which is good. I think that's good. The students or prospective students or young adults that I talk to, never. They, from my experience, they also believe that that's what they want out of college and that that's why they would go. The only pushback I ever hear is sort of from, it's hard to categorize the type of person it comes from or the type of place it comes from. But I think it's the institutional pressures. And sometimes you hear it from maybe a parent who wants what's best for their kid, but is also looking at the financial feasibility of paying for college these days. Right. Sometimes it comes from things like accrediting bodies or high school counselors or various people who are upholding some of the current traditional model. And I was just reading an article this morning that said that the cost of higher education these days at private liberal arts colleges is in the realm of $70,000 a year, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I can understand how if you're a parent and you're looking at that as your possibility for your kid, you want to know that at the end of this journey that your child is going to go through, that that's going to be worth it. Right. And so I think a lot of times now you hear the question of, well, what job are they going to get, and how can I be guaranteed they're going to get a job that they can pay this back, or that if I'm paying for it as a parent,
right,
will feel like that was worth investing in. And the economists these days are saying there's no guarantee of that. Right. And so thankfully, in my opinion, we're seeing a lot of young people either delaying going to college, taking gap years first, doing something else first, doing a thing like wayfinding where they pause and figure out who they are, do a little exploration, and then they leap into something like that.
Right.
I think we need more of that pausing and making sure that if you're going to go to college and make an investment in a 4-year college like that you really know why you're doing that. So the only pushback I get is, rightfully so, from people who are saying, when I look at the cost of this thing, and when I look at the odds of getting a job at the end that's going to pay this back and that's going to make this clearly, hands down, absolutely worth it, I'm skeptical. I think they're right to ask that question. Right. But I think at our hearts as humans, we really do want other humans who we love and care about to figure out who they are so that they can find their values and find their purpose and do work that brings them joy and happiness and fulfillment and thriving. And I think from most of our perspectives, we understand that if people can tap into that and work from that place, they will be financially sustainable as well. And it's just new territory, I think, for us to be thinking about it that way as a society, and that's going to take some time.
Do you think that it takes a little courage and kind of a bit of trust to make that leap and be like, okay, I'm going to follow what I feel like I'm passionate about, what my purpose is, regardless of, whether this pans out right now in my mind, theoretically, that I'll be able to make money doing it, or that it's going to work in today's economy? I mean, do you find that lots of people are willing to do that, or do you think that that's something that we need to foster more as a society?
All of that. I think we need to foster that more as a society. I think that for a long time, the way we've done higher education sort of worked. I mean, employers could feel like, okay, if this person went through a 4-year college and got this degree, then I feel like I can hire them to do these kinds of jobs. Right. But the jobs that employers are employing people for these days are rapidly changing. Right. So now there's no guarantee. And the way that higher education is structured and set up, it's about checking boxes, and it's about taking tests and memorizing information and getting good grades and following a very specific standard of this is the APA format of writing a paper. And that's not what employers tend to need anymore with people that they're hiring. And so it's like employers are sort of moving along quickly, but higher education is not keeping up with that in terms of really cultivating critical thinking skills and general ability to work with other people, understanding how to work on a team, understanding who you are. So I think at this moment, we're in a weird time where I think people know that it's the right approach for them, and we're asking them to go against the current loudest voice in the societal norm. And so yes, it currently takes a leap of faith, because I believe we're on the front end of this movement that's changing. So I think in, even as little as a half a dozen years, it will feel much less like a leap of faith.
Yeah, right.
But I think right now we're on the front edge of that. And so I think right now it's going to be the most courageous and independent and forward-thinking people who are willing to take that leap at this particular moment in time.
Right. And the more people that have done that, and then everything works out, the easier it becomes for you and for society to do that. Because that got me thinking, do I know anyone who's taken that risk and it hasn't worked, in some way worked out for them, where they're just I'm going to follow my heart, I'm going to do something I'm passionate about, I'm going to follow my purpose, and I'm going to take that leap. And then everyone I know that's done that, it seems like they're okay financially. It's not always super easy, and it's not but you make it happen. Right. So that's really interesting. That got me thinking just during this conversation. Awesome. Well, thanks for answering that question, and we'll dive into some more questions on a regular basis here.
Sounds great. I look forward to it.
Awesome.
Thanks, Ty.
Thanks, Michelle.